This is the GPL podcast, part of the Pull Tab Sports family.
I always Uber Eats Taco Bell whenever I'm on here.
Oh,
I told my wife that too today, and she's like, "Not tonight, not tonight." But I Uber Eats Taco Bell, and I think I woke up at like 4 a.m. and I was like, "My Taco Bell's still outside."
You know, it was good to see that the Big Ten Network recognized how to cover hockey last week.
now here's Jupiter and Vigo. Good evening and welcome to the GPL podcast, episode number 280. Good evening, Vigs. How are you doing tonight? Oh, you're muted.
Oh,
there we go. You pulled a me.
Well, usually you automatically unmute me coming in. So, as usual, you know, I'm just keeping everything going right now, trying to scramble my way through the hockey season. Very intense period of the year right now, but exciting times too. Unfortunately, we saw the Gophers on Friday not do so well. But
okay, let's talk about some good news first, because you know you talk about how busy it is, and it's going to be busy. You know, we're off next week, but after that, it's going to be busy through the rest of the season. And one thing, we're going to be doing a special show on February 20th, that Thursday, aren't we?
That's right. There's a new sheriff in town with high-speed internet. And
Yes.
we're going to be doing Fiber to the Fish House, sponsored by Gateway Fiber, coming up here in Maple Grove on February 20th. We're going to do a live pod from there, kind of infrastructure coming from Gateway Fiber. So it should be fun. There'll be lots of things there to do and celebrating the arrival of Gateway Fiber to our shores in the most Minnesota way possible by doing a pod in a fish house.
A pod and a fish house, Vigs. It's going to be a little crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, I feel like we should have had Jack Ramsey lined up for that show, being the ice fishing expert, but I think he'll be busy. So there'll be lots of fun stuff there, some giveaways, some other pods.
Kind of the main
bonfires.
thing. Yeah, it's all by Pull Tabs putting this all together, pushing, Gateway Fiber on kind of the northern parts of the cities, Plymouth and Brooklyn Center and all that other stuff. And I think earlier in the day, they're doing some free pizza and stuff like that from like 11 to 2. And then our show will be at, was it 4 or 5 p.m. that day, I think, Vigs?
Yeah, 4 to 5 we'll be there, and we'll have Cappy on with us to talk about Ohio State that week.
We definitely will. So we're excited about it. We're going to talk more about this when we've got John King on in a couple weeks. So that'll be fun. But we just wanted to make you guys aware we're going to be live up in Maple Grove on February 20th. Okay, now the bad news, Vigs. Yeah. I picked 5 points last week. You picked 6. They got 1. And let's just do it now. This is how we felt on Friday night. Rain, terrible. Gave up 9 goals, Vigs.
It was not a very good weekend for Minnesota. Luke Middlestad had an interesting comment this week. It's like, we got to get the me out of our game. And I think they also got to add a little bit more compete. You know, the fine line between successful hockey and losing hockey sometimes is pretty small. And the game just got away from them play after play after play. And Adam Nightingale's done a great job acquiring talent at Michigan State, and they definitely capitalized. The Gophers didn't get great goaltending either. Tough recipe for success. It was kind of like the antithesis of Mike Hastings hockey. And luckily we have a guest on to maybe show us like all the things that a team can do right to do wins this week and things that are going well, because it's definitely not good feelings for the Gopher family right now.
It was bad feelings, but better feelings throughout the season. Didn't start so well for the Badgers, but when we talk Badgers, we only bring in one guy, Todd Milewski. Let's bring him in. Todd, how are you doing, man?
I was making sure that was me when you were one guy. Thanks, guys. Well, I'm good. How are you guys?
We're doing good. You know, Minnesota, bad weekend last weekend.
It happens.
The Badgers on the other end have been doing much better, a lot less. Well, okay. They have 3 league losses regulation.
Yeah.
They have 7 shootout or overtime losses. And that's what's really been killing them, because early in the season, they just weren't scoring.
Well, killing them, but also propping them up. If you want,
I
glass half
guess.
empty, half
Yeah,
full.
yeah, I guess.
They're in 4th place right now because of those loser points. And
Loser points.
let's call it what it is, right?
Yes, yes.
You're getting a point for getting to overtime. Okay. But yeah, they've got 2 goals in overtime this season, both of them by a defenseman who's now out for the season. They've got all this, who probably normally wouldn't have even have been in those overtimes, but he scored once on a shift where he just happened to get out there because they were pretty deep, 3 or 4 minutes deep. And they said next time, no, throw him out there again. And he scored again. And that was Daniel Lach, and he's out for the season with an injury. But scratch your head time on how that's kept finishing that way for him.
But the Badgers have to be happy with 4 points on the weekend against a Michigan team, and maybe also Michigan a little disappointing this year so far. Would you say?
Yeah. I think there's elements of their game that are fairly disappointing. I don't know that we knew for sure whether they're going to be able to outscore their errors like they have in the past. And I think there's been some major cases of that this year. They were not very well disciplined, which I think, hearing from a few Gopher fans last week too, in some of my mentions, not a shock. But it's a team that can be really good. It's just not all put together there right now.
Well, one team that is put together in Michigan right now is Michigan State. Vigs. Minnesota certainly handled Michigan, a month and a half ago now. But Michigan State definitely has Minnesota's number.
They do. And I think a lot of people coming into this weekend were looking at Trey Augustine as this, brick wall goaltender that was going to give the Gophers lots of trouble. The Gophers did get to 3 in both nights.
Mm-hmm.
If you get 3 against Trey Augustine, you have to feel pretty good about yourself offensively. But on the flip side, defensively, Michigan State really took it to Minnesota. I thought they outcompeted Minnesota on plays at the net. I thought they took advantage of Gopher turnovers. On the faceoff circle, they absolutely hammered the Gophers. I think they won like 65% of the draws on the weekend. It's hard to win hockey games when you start almost every key shift without the puck and chasing. And they're losing draws clean too. I know during availability this week, Motzko was trying to say it's a shared responsibility on this team to win draws with wings and other guys helping out. I got to see some in-stat video this week looking at faceoff losses. There's a lot of clean ones that other teams are winning. So that's got to change for Minnesota. I'm not sure how it's going to, pan out, because it's not like you can bring in new centers. They've got to keep working with the ones they have. But it's just interesting to hear the way the coaches and the players talk about it when they're asked about faceoffs.
And you talk about it, it's a team thing. But like you said, if you looked at those in-stats, there were quite a few times. Boy, you lose that faceoff in the defensive zone. All of a sudden, boom, the puck is in the net, and it's directly off that.
Well, and it's leading to quick offense too, off the draws. Like, other teams are able to get the puck moving and get pucks to the net. It's not like Minnesota is being aggressive and blocking those shots and getting in lanes and getting in their structure. It's almost like sometimes they lose their draws in the D zone, and it takes them a second or two to kind of figure out how to defend. And against talented teams, they're going to take advantage of that. And it's just a detail to this team that they're going to have to figure out as you get deeper in the season, because draws matter. And you get to tournament time and in these one-and-done situations, and you can have the most talent and the best power play, but if you can't win faceoffs at least 50-50 or contest them, you're going to be in trouble.
So a 9-3 loss, a 3-3 tie, and then it leads us to our favorite new stat, Todd, the most unbelievable stat of all time now.
It is. It totally is.
10 losses in a row on the shootout, 25 misses in a row.
It is not explainable.
It's not.
It just isn't. I mean, post or crossbar and up on one of them this last week, right? So 3 inches and you got a goal. Yeah. How can that keep happening? I understand losing. You can lose that many in a row. Not scoring once in that is the part that is just beyond reason for me.
Vigs, I've just embraced it. I just kind of enjoy it now. I mean, come on, that's 25 in a row. I mean, okay, Vigs, if you took 25 shots in a row on a penalty shootout on Martin Brodeur, you're gonna get one of them.
I don't know if I get one on Marty. Maybe today. Now, if we got him out of the front office and threw on some old deer hair pads, but I will say,
by luck.
By luck, you think you'd get one through. It was interesting at practice on Wednesday. The team worked on face-offs and structure out of face-offs for about 30 minutes.
Okay.
And then they spent about 20 minutes on shootout. I like full ice, from the red line all the way in shootout.
Really?
They had teams of 5 competing against each other in kind of like a little round robin. And I think the coaching staff is probably like, let's just spend some time on this. Maybe we'll get one and then we can move on. Because I've never seen them practice shootout for that long. Usually it's just like a 5 or 10 minute deal.
Yeah, it's because, when I went to practice about a month or a couple weeks ago, it wasn't an official big shootout thing, but it was that type of thing they were practicing where you kind of get rewarded. It's a game. If you score, you get to go 2-0. It's like this cool little game. And then you're pitting, one side against the other. So it's not like they are not practicing it. They were kind of doing it in fun games, but you were specifically saying they practiced for a while specifically on it this week.
And maybe with a little bit of pressure, they wouldn't share with me what the reward was in the penalties. Sometimes with little kid, you call it the orange and the lemon. If you're on the good side, you get to go to the orange line and you're playing to win the orange. If you go to the lemon line after missing, you got to score. Otherwise, you're going to have to eat the lemon at the end as the loser. So, they were playing for a little bit of pride in that one and maybe something else. Mike Kester's group won it out of the shootout competition. I saw Connor Kurth with some good moves, Brody Ziemer with some good moves, Snuggerud obviously with a great shot. So if they do get into another shootout, we'll see if all this attention pays off.
Did anyone pull a Rolston in any of that time?
I saw a fake Rolston, but I did not see the huge slapper yet. So,
well, Todd, I kind of hope it continues because it's just baffling. It doesn't make sense, like you say.
I meant to look this up and I didn't, but have there been any penalty shot goals? There had to have been somewhere in that along the way, right?
Well, we're not including that on
no, I know, but
stat.
Have they had any penalty shots that they've scored in that time?
Well, Jack Ramsey missed the last one.
or is he out of that stat now?
He's probably out of that one now.
I think somebody else has missed since then. It might have been Snuggerud. Snuggerud has not scored on a shootout or a penalty shot yet.
So you wonder whether do you start changing up who's going first or who's going in the first 3, or just reversing the order, taking someone who would never get a chance and say, hey,
they've done that though.
Really?
They've totally done that. The first thing somebody tweeted when Chesley took a shot on Saturday night, like, why is the defenseman taking a shot? Well, why did they put the rest guys out there? And it's like, I responded by saying, because no one else can score. Why not throw anybody out there? Because obviously before then, 25, players before, or 24 players before that had missed. Why not throw a defenseman out there? Huh, Viggs? I mean, they've got nothing to lose.
Well, I remember at one point when the streak was going on, Cal Thomas was the player that won the shootout competition in practice. So the coaching staff put him out there first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of how they were trying to do it, is like a little bit of a meritocracy of, hey, if you win the shootout in practice, you're going to go first in the game if you want it. So it's a great mystery. You know, luckily for pairwise, you know, this shootout stuff doesn't matter. So if you're a Gopher fan, you can look at Friday's 9-3 loss. That's just one loss in the pairwise. It doesn't take into account score differential. And then the tie is a tie.
Mm-hmm.
So the Gophers have 2 ties, I think, this year and 4 losses to Michigan State. And obviously it's not hurting them too much in the pairwise. They still are in position for a number 1 seed. It's just Michigan State and BC seem to be running away with the number 1 and number 2 overall seeds.
And you did find the Jimmy Snugger who did score in November 2020. Is that the stat you found?
2022 against Notre Dame.
Oh, 2022. Yes. I didn't quite read that. I think he's missed again since then.
Yeah, I think so too.
But that's just it, Todd. Everything just kind of blurs now.
Right.
It's like
right.
with such a streak. I enjoy it now. I have my little file up ready to put it in the system of who's missing and whatnot. I that's all you can say. I'm just laughing. I'm just enjoying it.
Especially when it only matters to the degree of a point in the standings.
True.
And
yeah,
that could be valuable, but it's easier to say it'll be all right.
Well, if they are behind a team by a 1 point, for a place, maybe if they would have gotten those 2 extra points during the season.
Yeah. I mean, if it means the difference between winning a championship and finishing second or getting a home semifinal or going on the road in the semifinals, that's gonna feel pretty bad, right?
I can imagine like losing by 1 point. Let not say they're gonna to Michigan State Bigs, and we know they probably would rather finish second than first. But isn't there like a bonus for? I mean, Bob missed like a $30,000 bonus just a few years ago for finishing second, didn't he?
Yeah, and that was the year that not everybody played the same number of games.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were trying to figure out, win percentage, point percentage. And I think they went win percentage, but if they would have gone point percentage, Motzko would have won the $30,000 and the Gophers would have won the regular season.
Right.
Fans can say what's more important. And I'm sure Bob was like, should have campaigned a little harder for that one, I guess. But yeah, big picture, the biggest thing for me is you'd like to have a Big Ten tournament game on home ice.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen Minnesota have that opportunity against Michigan, and they haven't obviously delivered in those games, but they were great atmospheres. They were fun to be at. So that's really the only thing I think you could look at right now with getting the number 1 seed and winning the conference regular season.
And Todd, Brad Schlossman jumped on for overtime last week, and he talked about how he's looking forward to the NCHC moving from a big site to campus sites for their tournament, just because he's seen, at Michigan State last year, Michigan and Michigan State, great atmosphere. We've seen it at Mariucci, and he talks about games up at Michigan Tech and how it's just awesome. It's the way to go now.
It is. I think I still will say if anyone could pull off what the WCHA pulled off with the Final Five back in the day, you absolutely have to do that. But those days are gone for any number of reasons, but beyond the fracturing of the league, more just the fan engagement seems to be a little less that time of the year of getting everyone in one place. I mean, we've seen the NCHC has been able to do it to a degree, but it's obviously fallen off for them too. And it just seems like the way to go. The numbers don't lie. The pictures don't lie. The video doesn't lie. It all just makes sense to do it that way. And then you start to ask, as I'm sure Brad would extend it on, why wouldn't you do that in the NCAAs? And I don't. There's still not a great answer to say, well, here's why not.
Unless it's the Kohl Center, because we know the Kohl Center struggled because they got other things planned.
No, and honestly, that's one of the reasons why Wisconsin wasn't really hugely in favor of sending the Big Ten tournament to campus sites because they couldn't guarantee they were going to have their building for all of it. But they've worked out most of that now. There's still the usually it's one weekend a year that they've don't have their building and would have to play on a Sunday, but it has never been a factor before, so haven't had to cross that bridge yet. But yeah, I we'll have this conversation forever about regionals, and if it does happen, people will start having conversations about going back the other way again. So
yeah,
this is just what we like to do: is find the problem, and or if it isn't a problem, make it a problem.
Well, when Ben Holden makes me commissioner of college hockey, I'm just going to have a Western Collegiate Championship. And it's going to be everybody from NCHC, CCHA, NCHC, Big Ten, and you're all just going to play at Excel, and it's going to be, a 16 down to 1 weekend, and it's just going to be a great festival of college hockey. The East Coast can do the same thing. They can do their Champions of the East with Atlantic and Hockey East and ECAC, and they can have their tournament. And then we'll have campus sites for the regionals, best of 3. It'll be awesome.
Yeah, Viggs did get voted the college hockey commissioner last weekend with Ben Holden, and I think Schloss was like the idea too, Viggs.
Yeah, it'll be great. I've got 2 votes.
I'll go for that. Yeah.
Yes, 3 votes. I'm up to 3.
Put my vote behind you there. Yeah.
Well, we can only hope. Schloss did kind of mention Viggs that he thinks that some of the turnover of these older coaches could help that cause, with some schools going younger with their coaching staff.
Yeah, I mean, it could happen, but it's long term. They're already set with sites now for a couple of years, and it'll take some time to revisit it.
And as much as people like to ask the coaches about it, they're not the ones making the decision. They put in their input, but they're not the ones making the call on it. So
yeah,
it's not all on them. I mean, they have a say in it, but it's not. They're not the ones controlling the pocketbooks either. So,
never-ending conversation. So, Viggs, we need to talk about one of our sponsors here, Lunch Bucket Hockey. Their social stuff is so great. They got a lot of great apparel out there. Tell us about it.
Yeah, a couple local guys. They started a Friday lunchtime pickup hockey league, and they now have a hockey brand. And when Jack Ramsey and the Minnesota Lumberjacks went out to Vail to play in that little Yeti tournament out there, they were wearing Lunch Bucket hockey jerseys, which was sweet. Lakeville North, when they were doing some of their special, first responders games, they got Lunch Bucket hockey jerseys for that, special ones with that cool Nordiques logo stuff going on. So check them out if you're looking for custom jerseys or something special. This is for the hardworking guy on and off the ice.
All right. And we thank Lunch Bucket Hockey for being a sponsor of the GPL podcast. Now it's time for Vigo's top 20. Not much change there, Viggs. Your top 9 are all the same.
It's just hard to see the movement. Teams aren't necessarily separating themselves besides BC and Michigan State. Western obviously has been pretty good this year, and that's why we got them at 3 and Denver at 4. I think one of those NCHC teams is going to get a number 1 seed. The other one might be a number 2 seed, depending on how Minnesota can finish their year. But I just kind of see that top 9 as a group right now. Connecticut's one that's 4th in the pairwise, but 9th for me in my poll. I look at their schedule and they do have some good wins, but I just don't know if they're quite the talent that some of the other teams are at the top. And then when you get in the back half, there's just a lot of consistency. There's a lot of splits right now in college hockey at that area. And there's been some teams that have fallen out now of my top 20, like St. Cloud and North Dakota and Cornell. And you're seeing some, smaller teams get in there like Augustana and Sacred Heart, Michigan Tech, that have had some good games and some upsets lately.
How's that compared to your votes this week in the USCHO poll, Todd?
Well, I don't have Wisconsin in my top 20.
Really?
Yeah, I just you get into the back half of January and on, I can't put a team that's under 500 in the top 20. I just have a personal philosophy there, and that's the way I've always gone with it. And everyone has their own way of looking at it, so I have no complaints about anything, but I just think that looking at the totality of the season, they have to answer for that start that they had, and that's still a big part of their overall makeup. And now you can look at what they've done lately, and that's been a lot better. But it's still, they don't have any sweeps this season. They don't have any full on 6-point sweeps. And they're going to need that to really make a charge in the pairwise to get into a top 14 spot.
And one thing we did add this week, we did add the pairwise and brackets there. Vigs, Wisconsin 16, obviously a little outside of the zone they need to be. And if they were to go higher, they would need to keep a 500 or better record unless they won the Big Ten tournament. So they'll be there or not based off of that 500 record.
Yeah, I mean, one thing with Wisconsin, they have all those ties and overtime, shootout losses and things like that kind of impact maybe your perspective of the Badgers team. They're a talented team, I think, for anyone to face right now. They had trouble scoring goals early. They're getting better at that now, and they've had some good wins the last couple of weeks. The one team on here that's had some struggles is Minnesota State, and they looked like they were probably going to be an at-large team.
Yeah, they were moving up slowly, and then
they dropped games to Ferris and Northern Michigan, who are 57 and 61 in the pairwise. Those can be season crushers when you have losses like that. And, it's a lot of uncertainty at the back half of this poll and at the back half of the pairwise.
And you got somebody like Augustana who could win the league just based on percentage, isn't it?
Yeah, because they couldn't get out of those scheduling agreements that they had to sign when they didn't have a conference. And so, they wanted to get let into the league, and the league said, sure, we'll make it work. And I know there's a couple of Minnesota State fans who are unhappy with how that's looking right now, but credit to Augustana for getting some good wins and putting together a program pretty quickly.
And, kind of mentioned that's happened the last couple of weeks as well, is that St. Thomas did lose an extra year that they have to wait to be eligible. Isn't that true?
Correct. Next year is their first, first of full-time Division I program status. Yes.
I hear Little Birds saying they are looking at a lot of major junior players to make that leap as quickly as possible.
When did they go in the NCHC? Is that the same year or 2 years? Are they one more year in the CCHA?
I think it's one more year in the CCHA, and there was some debate whether or not they get let in early, as Brad Schlossman was pressing everybody at NCHC Media Day on that issue.
We'll have to
Since we no longer had to talk about Arizona State making the league, so we had to have a new topic.
I guess so, but Vigo puts it up there every week or on Monday or so. He puts his new pulse. Make sure you check it out there. Just some of the new things we're doing this year. I've been spending a lot of time. Well, geez, we had a server issue last week right before the big series. Got it turned on in about 24 hours to a new site, running faster, making some other changes. So it's been very, very busy, to say the least. And you've been crazy busy this year, Viggs, with so much of youth hockey and everything, haven't you?
Yeah, a lot of youth hockey. My kids, my Pee Wee team got to do a Minnesota Wild Youth Spotlight game earlier in the year, which was a big surprise. And this weekend we get to do a Mayor's Cup game with a Minneapolis team against a St. Paul team. We'll have Mayor Carter and Mayor Fry there. We'll have 2 Hobie Baker guest coaches for the game, so that'll be fun. It's kind of a kickoff for the World Junior tournament put on by the team that's going to be helping run that next year when it comes to Mariucci and Excel and Tria.
You missed a fun Friday night at Hockey Day with the alumni and college hockey alums playing off against each other. I think Minnesota would have liked to have taken maybe the college team should have had a little bit older players, because most of their guys were from the 2000s and before. Whereas Minnesota did have some. I mean, Brian Bonin played, Mike Crowley played, They look great. Geez, I see Brian Bonnen skating out there. I look at the video I took, and I don't even have to see his number or anything. You can just tell by the way he skates. It's just something you can't forget. But it was a fun night.
Did Bonnen circle the offensive zone a couple times with everybody in the crowd yelling "shoot"?
I don't know if he did that, but it was fun because I was shooting from the bench right there. It was just a blast to see all these guys together, and our guy Eric Sherhorn in goal. A little rough time. I think it's the first half of the game. There were no goals scored by either team, and then I think the goalies switched. They Stalag came out, Patterson came out, and then all of a sudden there was a score fest on both sides. So, but Parisi was playing there for the college all-stars, and he's obviously, some of these guys are not far from the NHL. Goligoski was just playing. You had, like I said, Parisi had just been playing. So some were not that old, Viggs.
Yeah, I heard Ben Gordon was sad to miss the game because he was in East Lansing, but he got good reports from Paul Martin on everybody's play, and there may be some players being thrown under the bus in the alumni text thread, but Thomas Vanek showed that he still has it. He's out there coaching Stillwater frequently, so he can still shoot the puck. And I heard he got a hat trick.
He did get a hat trick. All three of them were just these quick snipes, upper corner. I don't think it was like 2002 or 2003 again, Viggs. I could not believe it. Just effortless. Upper corner. You saw some of the other guys try to shoot for corners, and they just weren't close. But Mr. Vanek still has quite the shot.
I bet he's still putting up $400 or $500 a week. So, and he's got the new technology. Those synergy shots.
Well, that's what. Well, that's why Angel says why Johnny Pohl won all his faceoffs back in the day. He was the only one using the synergy. So who knows?
Pretty good. They all got the good tech now.
I'd love to see an alumni game between the Badgers and the Gophers.
I feel like they did one of those a few years back in Hudson, maybe.
Because it's just these guys, they're not hitting each other. They're just having so much fun, so much camaraderie. And like I said, some of them can still really play.
Yeah. I remember Matt Dolman was in that one. I think Tom Sagasaur had a hand in. I don't know if he was still playing or not, but there were some guys. I don't know if it was straight Badgers versus Gophers or if it was just a mix of different former players, different sides. But I know it's happened.
Yeah, the college all-stars, I would say, were coached by Mr. John Harrington and former Mankato coach Troy Jutting. I had not seen him in forever, Todd. So
I went to Cabela's last week and I thought of Juts.
Why is that?
I honestly, I thought of Shane Frederick. Because that was one of his great stories is that on the road, Juts calls his hotel room and says, and I can't do the voice as well as Freddie can, but Freddie, let's go to Cabela's. Because he had a car on the road. And I don't know where they were, but there was a Cabela's there. And
sometimes you just got to go to Cabela's, man.
It was there's one right across the highway from me. So it's pretty easy.
Yeah. When I was in for like a hockey tournament weekend, one of the things to do is like, should we go see a movie? What store can we go to and just run around for an hour or two? And Cabela's would be a great spot when you're on the road and just looking for something to do. So I totally get it.
All right. Well, let's get more sponsors here in Viggs. We need to talk about Cub. And boy, you are at Cub all the time in your neighborhood.
Yep. Every time you got a party or you got a meal that you got to put something together, Cub is your go-to place. They're all over the neighborhood. They're a Minnesota company. They support, Gopher Sports. They support Pull Tab Sports and Gopher Puck Live. And as you get ready for your Super Bowl party, if you want to see the Chiefs and Taylor Swift and the Eagles, make sure you go to Cub. You can get your Jimmy's dill dip for your veggie trays. You need hot dogs, burgers, brats, cold cuts, whatever you need. Cub Foods is your place. And while you're there, a lot of them have liquor stores now. to get your beer, wine, liquor, THC products, whatever you need. Check them out, cub.com.
And of course, we've got State 1981 Dreams of a Dynasty, and a quick URL there, gopherpucklive.com/1981 will bring you right to their Amazon listing, Viggs.
Yeah, Mark Figure has all these great dynasties for 35 years of the high school tournament, and he writes this one from the South St. Paul Packer perspective on their 21st tournament appearance, trying to get that first title. Side note, they're still looking for one in real life. It's a fun retelling from that viewpoint. We're getting to that point of the year where high school teams are getting ready for sections. This might get you in the mood. Check it out on our link on gopherpucklive.com/1981.
Of course, we thank those two for sponsoring the GPL podcast. I saw a comment here from Mote. Taylor Kearns, Jupe was fanboying Mike Crowley. Yes, I was. I got to speak to him for a little bit. It was the coolest thing ever because I never met him, and in all the 20, almost 30 years of him being my favorite all-time Gopher. So yes, it was very cool. So, who else was there? Jim was. Says it was a fun night. He was on the bench right next to me the entire night. It was a blast. And then, of course, Jim's got another one. I think was Stillwater.
Yeah, he's right now that I think of it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Well, that's Jimmy. Jimmy was happy because he's like, "Oh, I'll be able to watch the show tonight." I'm like, "Yeah, we're earlier tonight." He's like, "Even better." So it's up now. We're not too late for Jimmy. Viggs, the Badgers are coming to town this weekend, and this is not going to be easy in any way for the Gophers.
No, and not the kind of struggles that the Gophers are having right now. Playing a Mike Hastings coach team is not a great recipe for that kind of situation. If they don't get good goaltending and they're bad in the face-off circle, this is a weekend where Wisconsin could take advantage and maybe kick Minnesota while they're down. Yeah, I'm a little nervous about the Gophers right now. They had a bunch of guys who are dealing with illnesses and now some injuries. Beckett Hendrickson, August Falloon re-injured themselves this past weekend. I know Hendrickson was skating this week, but Falloon was not when I was there at practice. So a little bit of an unknown. And when you've got guys that are, not feeling well, a little sick, it's like that battle level just drops a little bit. And Wally Shaver said on the flight home from East Lansing, it was like a chorus of coughing on the flight. So it's just something they're dealing with. I know a lot of teams in college hockey are dealing with the same thing. It just seems to be impacting Minnesota a little bit more than even their injury struggles in the first half of the year.
Better now than in March, Viggs.
That's what I told Wally. I was like, on the silver lining, maybe they get through this illness now, and in a month, they're totally past it and they don't have to worry about it coming back. You just hope they don't get another bug going through the team.
Yeah. And Todd, it sounds like you're not sure if you're going to make it here this weekend.
Hoping to, not
Okay.
going to be having the expenses covered. So working on some things. I'm going to try.
Got any relatives up here you can hang with? You can stay with Viggs.
I've got a spot, Todd, if you need one.
We'll talk.
Yeah, we'll talk. I've got some youth hockey on the weekend, but you come down to Tria and check it out as well between games.
Cover the games.
There we go.
Yeah, you cover the games. Get ready for World Junior coverage.
Yes.
Oh boy. So Todd, yes, the Badgers only have 3 regulation losses, 7 overtime/shootouts. You spoke early in the season, they could not score. Mm-hmm. How have things changed in your point of view?
More people have found the way that they need to play, I think, is really what it's come down to. Quinn Finley's been there the whole time. He's pouring in goals like they need him to. Their first line's been really good, but they've been pretty good the whole season, even in that first 10 games. It's the next few guys that have started contributing. They're getting more lately from Christian Fitzgerald, who's playing center, even though he's probably should be playing a wing. They'd really rather have him on the wing, but they just don't have the depth at center to put anyone else in there. Tyson Dick had a really good game on Saturday, maybe his best game of the season, goal and an assist, and created a bunch of chances. Simon Tassi struggled with injuries first half of the season. He's finally feeling healthy to a point where he can do what he wants to do, both in kind of being a pest sometimes and in, getting the puck to the net. They went 20 some games with only having 2 goals out of their defensemen, and both of those were those overtime goals I was talking about earlier from Daniel Lach. Now they've got a few guys that have, all had 1, and it's not much, but it's something. And so that's where it's changed a little bit. It's exactly that, not much, but something. And when they're able to limit the other team's chances, a lot of times that's been enough, at least enough to get to overtime, which is the way it's been gone. A lot of the times they've been in a lot of close games in the third period, been able to get a lot of them to overtime and win a few of them at the end. So that's the change from the first month of the season, is that there's more they can depend on, not necessarily being sure of who it's going to be game to game other than that first line, but someone's come through.
And, one of those overtime losses was to the Gophers, Vigs. Snuggerud setting Zemer up in a midair kind of bunt into the back of the net to win it in overtime back earlier this season. Snuggerud has been playing very well lately. He is one of the bright spots in some of the bad games. But I am concerned about Mr. Lamb. He has been quiet for a while, and he needs to kind of wake up.
I think he does, but one thing about Lamb is sometimes I don't know if he's so much of a play driver kind of person right now. He's looked his best on the power play, at winning second chances, at winning out of chaos in front of the net. I just haven't seen the Gophers creating that kind of situation for him the last couple of weeks, and so he's not able to flash like he was when he was producing for the Gophers. And so I do think that's where he's going to generate his offense. What I'm looking for out of Minnesota, and what I'm a little worried about right now, is their defense. In the first half of the year, we saw a lot of production from Renzel, Chesley, Middlestat, Thomas, Kester. They were all chipping in very consistently, always looking dangerous and closing down plays quickly in their own end. They've regressed a little bit over the year. Thomas is coming back from his injury, so you can't expect him to be at full speed, but the compete and consistency from Renzel and Chesley, I don't know if it's been there the last couple weeks. They've been a little bit of roller coasters on the ice, and that's what they're going to need to be successful. Is they need those players playing at a high level.
I've been reading, we've been getting chirped live by Pat Micheletti on Twitter, Vigs. He's a little bitter that we went early this week, but he did tell us that Fox 9 is doing an hour pregame Friday night for the big Gopher Badger matchup. So does that make him feel better, you think? Is that going to work on him, Vigs?
Maybe we're hyping him up. He'll appreciate that. Pat needs very little hype because he's on all the media all the time. Radio, TV, social media, cable, satellite, streaming, on our show when we are lucky to have him. So it'll be fun to hear his thoughts for the whole hour. One thing I'll also be looking for this weekend, does Soulier get 2 games?
Oh, yes.
We're kind of at that point of the year where, Airy got his shot to get 2 games. This would feel like a possible weekend where Soulier maybe would get his chance. Now, that being said, I did not think either goalie looked especially good against Michigan State. I think that was maybe partially the product in front of them, but Airy did not have a good game on Friday. It just wasn't. There's no defense of that. So,
well, there was no defense of either of them on Friday night, and the guys playing in front of them. When you give it up 9 goals, it's a complete cluster.
It was interesting. Jack Ramsey broke down some of the PK save percentage numbers for us. I kind of dug into some Instat stuff this week with Josh Kreiser, one of our Gopher friends out west in Portland. He was showing me some of the things. And one of the things I noticed was how easily Airy sometimes will lose his crease on net battles and basically give empty net putbacks. And that's something that Soulier isn't doing. He's very athletic and he's very active in the crease, but he's able to find his posts again and find his ice and protect the net a little bit better than Airy. Airy looks like he gets in these scrambles and he's just not in position where the puck can't even hit him because he's so far out of the way trying to find it. So I think that's one thing to look for in maybe in a series like this where seasons, they're not teetering, but this is a key moment of the season, I think, for both teams. Maybe Soulier gives you a little bit more of a veteran presence for both games with big crowds expected at Mariucci too.
Yes. For Saturday's already sold out. You talk about that stat that Jack sent us. It was a penalty kill stat. This was before the games this past weekend, but he says that the Gophers are 23 of 26 on killing penalties, 88.5% when Soulier is in net. When Airy is in net, they're 23 of 34 at 67.6%.
And the save percentages I saw were Soulier's penalty kill save percentage is like in the 90s, like 90, 91, and Airy's save percentage on the penalty kill is like 78%.
Okay.
So that's a pretty significant difference in your goaltending. And, some of it is the structure in front of him, but a lot of it is those scrambles in front of the net where the goalie loses his ice.
How's Wisconsin goaltending there, Todd?
Rough weekend last weekend.
We know what that's like.
Yeah, right. Shared experiences here. Tommy Scarfoni started Friday, gave up 4 on 14 and got pulled. And that's the game they came back to win 5-4. And William Grama came in and stopped all 80 faced the rest of the way. And Michigan really did not have much of a push after they scored their 4th. And so that was part of the reason why.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. Wisconsin was able to get back in that. And then they gave Grama the start on Saturday, and he gave up 3 on 4. So, and got pulled, and Scarfoni went back in. And that has not happened a lot since Hastings has been here. I felt like we saw that a lot, that kind of the golden carousel in the Granato years. I mean, really year to year and in game a lot, because it felt like there were 30 different goalies in Granato's 7 years. And it just was a kind of a revolving door at some point. But what happened last weekend, I think, was they wanted to say it was an aberration. It was not. This is not something we're expecting to happen again. But you've got to go out and prove that. And Tommy Scarfoni's been a lot better the second half of the season than the first half of the season. But I'm interested to see whether, a couple of bad bounces, and there were a few of those, kind of, reorient his thinking or get him off his game at all. And they need him. They need him. They need the defense to be strong. That's, what Mike Hastings teams are always built around, is being strong in the defensive zone and building out of that. Then when you're playing like you feel like you need to be perfect in the D zone, that makes it hard. And that was really the trouble the first part of the season, right? Is that they weren't scoring enough. They knew they needed to be almost perfect. And that's not a good way of playing. You're not playing very free. No. You're feeling like you're locked, the chain's on. There's been a lot less of that lately from the Badgers. So I feel like that's one of the things they have to emphasize to themselves, is that we've seen how this works, and we've done it against really good teams. And it hasn't always ended up with the win, but the process of it has led to some pretty good things.
I'm taking a look at a couple comments. You mentioned Josh there. He's thanking you for the shout out, Vigs. And then, of course, we got Tim Hapke, which has got probably a good question for Todd here. Is Hastings still closing practice to reporters?
That is correct.
Oh, he afraid you're going to snitch and tell all the secrets, isn't he?
I got a big mouth.
All right, Todd, what happens this weekend? What are your predictions? What do you want to see?
I want to see the game in person. I want to see the games in person. So, all right, that starts that. I think so. Even when things were going terribly for Wisconsin early in the season, they still got some points.
Mm-hmm.
They have gotten at least 1 point out of every series so far, and that's not easy to do, especially when you're having as rough of a ride as they did early.
Mm-hmm.
However, they've also not gotten 6 points, as I mentioned earlier. They've every series has been either 1, 4, or 5 points. I think there might be a 3 in there. I'm not completely sure, but so I don't think they end up with no points this weekend. But I have a real hard time saying that they're gonna get a straight up win too. I feel like they're maybe getting an overtime win, maybe a shootout win. It seems like maybe more likely. Given the
that would be so good
teams here, right? Badgers can't win an overtime game. Gophers can't win a shootout game.
Oh boy,
maybe that's how it ends up. But I think that would be. I mean, they'd love to get a win. They'd be over the moon with 2 wins like they were last year. But I think they need something out of this weekend. I think they get a little bit of something.
For me, I'm thinking it's a 3-point weekend, so a split right down the middle. Vigs, I don't know what team is going to show up for Minnesota. You know, we've had it all season. That's the Minnesota team where we don't want to see. That's the team. And then they're like, oh, this is the worst team ever. Fire Mots go. It's been so up and down until they kind of prove something to me. I'm picking to split. What do you think?
It definitely feels like the Gophers' inconsistency will keep going this weekend. I actually think maybe their shootout luck will change if they get into it after the practice I saw Wednesday. You never know. But I think 5 points for Minnesota this weekend.
Oh,
getting that overtime shootout win on Saturday.
Overtime shootout win on Saturday. That's a prediction. I like it.
But this very easily could swing the other way. You never know. I mean, 6 guys were sick last week for Minnesota at least. Maybe a few less this week for Minnesota, but still important players are coughing and hacking out there. So we'll see. This is kind of a big stretch, I think, for Wisconsin. After Minnesota, they get Penn State, Ohio State, Notre Dame. And you could kind of consider that easier games.
Yeah, I mean, we were looking at this last week, comparing them to Michigan, and they have an easier road through the last few weeks. If you're thinking about who gets the last home ice spot, and it's tough to look much past that because it felt like 1 and 2 were in a chase for 1 and 2, and then Ohio State was in kind of in its own level in 3rd, and then it was 4th, 5th for Wisconsin and Michigan. But there's a lot to be decided in those few spots now.
All right. Either of you have anything else for this week? Vigs, Todd?
I'm just really interested to see if Soulier is the first goalie out on Friday. I think that's the biggest thing for the weekend, and see how he handles it for Minnesota. You know, he likes to perform, likes to put on a show, likes to be active. Wisconsin likes to dump pucks. This could be an opportunity for him to handle a puck behind his own goal line and maybe have a little bit of flair. Could be fun hockey to watch for Minnesota fans.
I will say we had Edina's Ben Dexheimer in the media room this week, and he threw some spice into our usually pretty, quiet press conferences.
Really?
Talking about hatred, talking about wanting to be the bad guys, and I'll have that in the story on our website, Madison.com, BadgerExtra.com Thursday morning.
Let's go. Come on.
And
we need some blood on this.
It feels like that's been been quiet for a while.
Mm-hmm.
That used to be the thing. Everyone, at least on the Wisconsin side, talked about that because they didn't really have a whole lot else to talk about for a lot of years other than that hatred and not wanting to lose again. It's moderated a little bit in the last decade, I guess, but it is a little bit, like I said, a little bit spicier, a little bit nicer to have some passion going into things. And he's talking about how much they love having, the student section going to be there an hour and a half early and right on their backs and warm-ups, and how much they love that. And they the Kohl Center was great on Saturday night. The announced at 13,000. The student section was just about full up to the top of the third level. And it was just like that energy is, for a pretty good amount of time at Wisconsin wasn't there. And so it's good to have that back. It's good to go into these buildings where it's going to be there when it's a border battle. That's fun. That's what I love to see.
Todd, do you get the sense there's going to be a good travel crowd from Wisconsin for the series? Minnesota, sometimes their sellouts haven't happened early in the week this year. And so when I see that kind of happen for a weekend like this, where they announce the sellout on like Monday, that to me tells me visiting fans are going to be coming to the series.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know that. I haven't gotten any sense from people that this, something we've got to go to, is especially after, basically a month after the Wrigley thing that everyone put a lot, if you're going to go away for a game, that might've been the one, right? But easy enough trip here. Not as easy as Chicago, but still pretty easy. And I know I'm not the only one that loves going into that atmosphere at Mariucci and seeing, even as someone who's just there once a year, kind of experiencing that as just a person who's been around college hockey this long, knowing that atmosphere is one of the purest in our game, and accepting it and loving it for knowing that it was kind of down for years and it's back again. And it's one of the coolest things to hear when that building roars. And we had a couple of those at the Kohl Center last weekend, and it was fun to hear that. And it's fun.
It's fun to go on the road, Todd. It really is. It's fun to go into somebody else's barn. So many times, I've been to the Ralph, I've been to the Kohl or St. Cloud and Duluth. When those places are rocking, Vigs, it's a good time.
So. Sure is. Should be a great weekend. Be aware, women's team plays Ohio State on Friday. So we got 2 games at once. So get there early if you can. And Saturday the women's are at 2.
Yep. There's a lot of events going on Saturday too.
So plan ahead.
And I'm heard a rumor that they might be doing something for Frank Mazzacco Friday night. I haven't confirmed it. I should probably do that, but I wanted to get it out there just in case.
You're starting to make my decision here for me, Jupe. How I need to be there.
Yeah, you might need to be there to see Frank. So, well, that's going to do it for this episode of the GPL podcast. We're off next week due to the bye, but we'll be back in 2 weeks with John King, the Kinger, as our guest. For those of you watching live, stay tuned for a short overtime this week. For the rest of you, we'll catch you next week on the GPL podcast. All right. right, Viggs. What is the beverage of the
Oh,
week?
man.
Oh,
Wait
that's
a
illegal. That's bootlegging.
Yeah, I spent a little bit of time in Wisconsin this last weekend, so I picked up my favorite New Glarus beer, Moon Man. A lot of people love Spotted Cow. I don't get it, but Moon Man's great. We've got kind of a little short OT, so we just got a little light pale ale here tonight.
Very nice. Very nice. I was gonna say, is that bootlegging? You have Roscoe Pico train? No, not Roscoe. Sheriff Buford T. Justice. Gotta pick my right cop from the late 70s.
Snuck a little 12-pack into the hotel and saved a couple for the week. So
there you go. There you go. So what's going on this week, Viggs? You're pretty busy. Is that why we're doing the early show?
Yeah, wife's got a little bit of travel, and I've got a lot of hockey practices going on this week. So we had a big hockey weekend, so we're just trying to keep our heads above water here. You know, I'm on my own. My kids are not going to bed on time lately, so can't really go late and expect they're going to be asleep by 9:30. So if we're done by 8:30, then they have a chance to maybe be asleep by 10. I don't know. Parenting's hard. It's hard. It's hard to parent podcast and do all that stuff and work, have a day job. You know?
Hey, like I said, I had my kid cook fish in the other room once and set off the smoke detectors in the house live during a show. That's just good memories there.
Yeah, I was on with I was zooming with Josh Kreitzer today. He was like, I remember when you were podcasting from your Civic. Man, those were the days. Sure were. Sure were some days back then. A little bit easier now, but hectic.
Just crazy. So newspapers gotten cheap. Gosh, it's just we hate it. We hate it.
Not great times as in the print world, and I don't even know if we consider ourselves that really anymore. We're so digital focused but that's still not bringing in enough money. So yeah, it's
and then I missed the Facebook stuff because you're not doing that hardly at all.
Yeah, to be honest, you were one of the only viewers most nights. So I got a little sad. So I figured I'd
come in there and razz you, and
yeah, which I always appreciated. It meant someone was watching anyway. Yeah,
you were getting some watch back on that, weren't you?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, not enough that anyone. I mean, I've heard from two other people besides you saying we missed that. So
I know actually I know the Rube here. You know, he's not in the chat tonight, but I know he's a GPLer and
too early for him.
Yeah,
too early for him.
I know I've been in some of your live streams and he's asked questions as well. So
yeah, and I mean
maybe those Wisconsin people just haven't embraced the technology.
I don't know. I've seen the crowd on Facebook lately. That's skewing a little older, but
yeah, my kids won't go on that stuff. It's our generation might be the last one on Facebook. It could die soon.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, it's been tough to get an audience for hockey stuff this year. So that's tough. But I persevere.
As long as you're taking pictures at the beginning of a game.
Yes.
How are the other Wisconsin teams doing? Like, I just was looking at Minnesota's budget that came out this month.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I haven't seen if you've posted about this already on the Wisconsin financial reporting, but
yeah,
what are things looking like?
I've seen it, but we kind of they turn over a lot of that stuff earlier in the year anyway when they reported to the athletic board. So I did some stuff on that before. It doesn't quite match up the numbers they report to them and the numbers that they give the NCAA. They tried to explain it to me once that there's different categories and different paybacks for
oh my goodness.
Tuition stuff has to go in one, but not the other. But I mean,
hold on, guys. John Gilbert passed away.
Oh no! Whoa!
Yes, just saw that pop up on the Twitter sphere here. John Gilbert, obviously long time
Wow, yeah.
Hockey writer. Little, I'm just seeing this now. He was 82, died Wednesday. So that's kind of bringing us down. Sorry, I just saw that and I thought I would say something. Wow, that's
yeah. I mean, John Gilbert covered the Gophers for how many years? And from the 60s, maybe 70s for sure.
70s for sure.
80s and into the 90s, right?
He had all these Herb stories.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. This just
sad.
I'm trying to find some more stuff on it right now.
I feel like I would always see him when the Gophers would play Duluth. He would make it a point to be there for those games. And you always get the responses from the coaches like, "Oh, John, good to see ya." Reserved for the few.
He covered a lot of, state tournaments and whatnot as well. Let me see if I can get something up here.
Like the people who get that response are Royce,
mm-hmm.
Charlie Walters, John Gilbert.
Yeah. Long-time hockey writer. So that's tough. That's tough. Not good there. So, and it sounds like, they are doing something, some little recognition for Frank Mazzocco this weekend. So Friday night, probably during.
Of course, I'll be there Saturday
during one of the intermissions. But Friday night, they're doing something for Frank. Frank, getting anything out of Frank is so tough these days. I'm getting texts this past weekend and earlier this week. He's in Mazatlan right now, or was, and he's telling me about the planets he's seeing in the sky. Yeah, there's Jupiter up in the sky. She's texting me. Oh, the sky is wonderful down here in Mazatlan.
I heard Wally Shaver talk about that on the broadcast because I think it's like, when are you going to retire? He's like, not for a while, but I kind of would like to be in Mazatlan right now too, instead of around all these coughing Gophers. Can we just go running time already?
Oh, yeah, because I was at that alumni game Friday night, and it was 5-3. At the end of the second, I'm like, on my drive home from Shakopee, I listened to third grade had just started. Gophers had a power play early. It was reviewed, but it's still 2 minutes. Like, maybe they'll get back into it. Kill it off, and then it just got ugly real quick. Figs. I didn't go back and watch it. People are saying, I'm like, probably a good one not to go back and watch. Did you see much of that game?
Yeah, I went back and watched. I'm a glutton for punishment. And it's like the second period didn't feel like that bad either. Like it was just small little plays that just would go the wrong way. You know what I mean? It wasn't like they were getting dominated and hemmed in. It was just like they make a bad play, Michigan State scores. The goalie doesn't make a save that you'd hope that he would make. And it just kind of trumbled away from him. Tough to watch, but that's how you learn. That's how you learn what's going on with the team is watching when they go through that stuff.
Yeah, but 9 goals. Jeez.
I thought Michigan State actually played better on Saturday than they did on Friday. I thought Minnesota was just kind of soft on Friday, and Michigan State took advantage. I thought Spartans had a little bit more heart in the Saturday game and more effort. And the Gophers got better goaltending. Still not elite.
Just the Friday night around the Big Ten. 9-3 in that one. 6-6 in Ohio State, Penn State, right? Pretty sure that was that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep. Yeah. And then 5-4 Wisconsin, Michigan. That was a rather loose night on the defensive side around the conference.
I was trying to ask Matt Wood this week about the difference he's noticed with Big Ten play and Hockey East play and things like that, and he didn't really want to get into like the looseness of the Big Ten because that's something I notice all the time in the Big Ten.
Yeah,
teams just will play back and forth and trade chances. I think Hockey East is maybe a little similar to the Big Ten in that mindset. It's NCHC and CCHA where things will get real tight with the coaching styles. Wood did say that his biggest difference is, you go on the road for 2 or you're home for 2.
Mm-hmm.
And out in Hockey East, you have so many home and homes during the year that you're just not used to that. I think it's harder to get sweeps that way too.
Mm-hmm. And some of them, because they think they play every team 3 times, right? In Hockey East, so you're playing an odd game here or there sometimes on a midweek, and it doesn't maybe build a flow that you would like. I mean, maybe you're playing more often sometimes, but you can have some long stretches too.
Jeez, I'm looking at some of those face-off numbers this past weekend, Vigs. Whew. The Friday night game, Charlie Strammel, 21 wins, 4 losses, 84%. Michigan State was 68.8%. Minnesota was 31.3 that night. And then Saturday night, oh, poor Paulson. 1 for 10.
Yeah, I mean, he's coming back from injury too.
Yeah.
So upper body injury for him that he's coming back from. So I think you'd expect a little bit of difference there. So
Moore was 10 for 10. So, or 10 wins, 10 losses, 50%. Strammel came back a little bit down. He was down to 59%. Jeez.
But the faceoffs are bad too. They're losing them clean, and they're not competing. And then when they lose a draw, they seem loose right away coming out of it too. And the other teams are just jumping on them. I'm sure Hastings and Wisconsin will be pumped for that. Who are their big faceoff guys?
They've been doing well on faceoffs. So Gavin Morrissey, a freshman's been doing pretty well at 55, 57%, somewhere in that range. Christian Fitzgerald, second liner, has had a rough go of it. He's under 500, 47, 48, somewhere in that range. Owen Lindmark, 6-year guy, knows all the linesmen, knows their tendencies and timing and everything. He's up near the top of the country in faceoffs, 60-some%. And Sawyer Scholl on the fourth line doesn't get a ton, but it's kind of in the 50-50 range. So yeah, if they can make something out of that. Now they don't typically, they aren't at least to my memory, aren't incredibly aggressive off of winning faceoffs. Like they don't get it to the net within 2 seconds. They're going to try and move it 3 or 4 times to find an open look somewhere or somebody that shakes free. But they did last week get one that was a pretty quick, clean win, back to the point, over to the D-man, shot, rebound. And that's
what's that?
It works great.
I don't recognize that play at all.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Todd, you want to touch on this with a player leaving for Major Junior who I think is going to be coming back to the NCAA?
He's committed to Michigan State, which was surprised everyone I talked to. Because when he left, his family told me that it was, they had nothing against Wisconsin. He just wasn't in the lineup enough. Drafted guy, I believe, by Seattle. They needed to see him on the ice. And so for his pro future, the answer was that he needed to go somewhere where he was going to play. And, he's from up in, I want to say BC. I'm blanking on it right now, but or at least played junior up there. So that felt like okay, this makes sense. I mean, it's tough to lose a guy in December, but I mean, it happens. He's not playing enough as it is. It wasn't going to damage their top 6. Now, when they had some injuries, that changed things up a little bit. They had to actually bring somebody back in who is not kept by Hastings and the new staff, but was still in finishing school. So they brought him back into the lineup last year. But yeah, it was. But to see him committed again to college was, one at the start of the season. You only had the kind of a guess that, well, maybe that might be a possibility at some point, and then it just takes off. And here we are. Everyone's got a CHL player or 2 in their commits all of a sudden, and off we go with that.
But it certainly feels like you're going to see more of the Canadian players stay closer to home rather than playing in the USHL or taking that route.
Yeah,
unless
the USHL comes up with some kind of NIL package essentially for players, which I don't think I see happening. at least immediately, but maybe there's a path to that at some point. I don't know how that fits within, the USA Hockey tiers structure or whatever. But if everything's changing, maybe it's time to look at all of that, to make the USHL be able to compete as much as it can in that environment as it kind of evolves.
It certainly feels like some USHL teams, like the Chicago Steel, are trying to do as many things as they can for player development, and Pull Tab Sports does like a inside the Steel kind of streaming thing that they do, and they're just trying to make it more professional and more development focused, and make it a differentiator for them more than just the league itself.
Well, and especially now, if there's competition for where you're playing as a team. I mean, talking about Youngstown and Muskegon and the OHL, and I know it's not happening for next year now, but that was even an option, and the discussion makes you as a league, I think, probably say, what are we offering? What do we need to be offering for not only the players, but also the franchises in terms of value and how you continue to build on that, because they're businesses. I mean, we all think of them as places that to churn out college players and future pro players, but they've got to make money. They've got to break even at least and keep people employed. So there's a lot that goes into that I don't know has really been fully like explored yet of like how this all works.
Yeah. Strammel sure did do a lot better this year. Viggs. It's like he's kind of turned it around completely.
It's crazy. Like, if he played with the energy that he's playing with right now for Michigan State when he was at Wisconsin, would that have even been a concern? Because it seemed like when he was playing Wisconsin, like there was like pouty play and me play and not a lot of compete. And now it's just like, okay, the lights are on and the wheels are turning, and he's a force out there. And same thing with Isaac Howard. I think he just got into that system at UMD and was so constrained that he couldn't perform. And now playing for Adam Nightingale, those guys are just unleashed.
Yeah, the shackles are off, right?
Yes.
And that a lot of guys will respond to that. And Adam Nightingale kind of seems to have that effect. And so that builds on itself and getting the next people in. So don't expect this to be a 1 or 2 year phenomenon here. As long as they keep him, Nightingale. I mean, because his name's going to start popping up. The more and more success that they have, his name's going to be the next one along. If David Carl isn't going anywhere, maybe with his experience in the NHL, he starts to get some looks as a guy that gets a chance at some point.
Certainly sounds like there's enough money going into Michigan State, though, to support NIL, to support coaching, to support facilities. Like I mean, the facilities there are night and day from where they were 10 years ago. I mean, they've done some video series of what things look like there this year, and it's impressive to see the turnaround.
How was the Whitelaw reception last weekend?
So he took one. I haven't gotten the chance to ask any of the players this, but he took one of the shootout shots, and I think he missed the net.
Yeah,
or lost the puck. And
I was watching.
Yeah. And so he's got to skate back past the Wisconsin bench, and there are guys just leaning like their knees are practically on the top of the bench, just leaning over, just giving it to him. And so I thought, I was laughing at that point, and I didn't really get a chance to do anything about it because I'm writing and everything at that point. But I filed that away, and I would love to have had a microphone on someone down there to hear what those chirps were, because there were a couple times where he was getting shoved after the whistle, and I mean that's the environment we're in now, right? Guys,
he belongs in Michigan.
Guys that it's a much better fit for him. Yes,
I do think there's an interesting story there to do like a retrospective, like feature story on transfers coming back home.
Mhm.
Like a couple of years down the line, when people are a little more free to talk about, what went into the departure, why they picked the school, and what it was like to play against their old team, and the teammates who maybe are happy to see those guys out the door. And
it's like that in every move, that there's someone that's like, on the team that's left, that's like, oh, I don't feel bad about that.
mm-hmm.
One, because maybe they didn't like the guy. Two, because maybe it gets them more chance at ice. So could work a lot of ways there.
I would like to see the both of you do an expose on the Lucius family and how all that craziness came together.
30 for 30. The Lucius family.
How's Cruz doing down there? Anyone paid attention? I think it was on TV when.
Yeah, I saw his
Yeah,
first game was against North Dakota a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I was kind of watching him and looked like the same guy that I remember. I mean, can get his chances, can shoot.
Yeah.
Kind of rooted in the D zone and doing the turn and stick swing and yep.
Expose, you two get together. There we go.
We'll work on that. Biggs, when you're commissioner, can you just...
Oh, there we go. And an official investigation.
No, we'll fund it. It'll be like, it will fund these stories to draw eyes to the game. We've got to do all we can to promote this game and get eyes on it and make it as exciting as possible. And a 30 for 30 college hockey story would be great. We could do a series.
Yeah. All right. Do you have much else here, Viggs? I know you got.
I probably have to parent. It's an exciting week. We've got ice times. Todd, be in touch about the weekend. I do have this lovely space. I have a bathroom that's almost finished. It's got a shower. It's got a toilet. It's got a sink.
There we go.
There's a fridge down here with pecan pie in it.
Whiskey late Friday night, Viggs?
Just for me, not for Todd, though. So,
Oh,
yeah. We'll probably have some homemade pizza left on Friday night when you get done posting your story.
Those Instagram posts just kill me, Viggs.
Yeah. I'm working on making pizzas for my work team at the U in the Athletes Village this summer.
Really?
My coworkers also see my pizza postings. They're like, maybe for one of our team days, we're on site one day a month. Otherwise, we all work from home. But for that one day, we can go to the Athletes Village and use the kitchen there in the Orlando Lake Center for Excellence.
There you go.
And make pizza.
All right, then. Todd, can you stay on for just a couple minutes? We want to make sure your video gets uploaded. Same with you, Viggs. You can't go anywhere.
Yes.
Until 8:30. I'm on fiber, too. I don't have the Fish House fiber, but I've got fiber. It's very nice.
Yeah, I am too, so it'll be quick, but we'll make sure. So see you next week, everyone. Take it easy.